I remember back when I were a kid and all this were fields, etc. My granddad telling me that there were only two man-made structures that could be seen from the moon, and one of them were Great Wall of China, and other of them were Straight Mile in Burnley. Is it right, that? Should be a blue plaque or something, shouldn't there?
Yeah, as a child, I went to St Theodore's, which is now Blessed Trinity, which is up off the end of the straight mile. So we'd get the bus from Parian, the little wizard from Mountain Hill, and we'd get off at the Burnley bus station, and then we'd walk up the steps up onto the canal, and that'd be like a shortcut, and we'd walk along. And get off at Thompson's Park, so we'd go under the bridge and then round up off Thompson's Park and then over the bridge, and vice versa coming back into school. But I must say, after school, it was like a free-for-all, because when you arrived at school, it was dependent on the buses. When you finish school, and it's only 200 yards away, you've got 500 lads leaving the school. So going to school, it's quite pleasant. Coming home from school, there were people, having fights, or meet you outside at Canal, we'll have a scrap. But with the straight mile, you've got the culvert bridge, and it's just iconic in Burnley, really. You walk under the canal to go to the turf. You walk over the culvert to have a nice walk back from Brayfield or Nelson Way.
I think the only time that I became aware of it being around water in the working environment was when we had somebody come into the library to return some books, and they'd been borrowed in and they'd come down their barge, and they were just like, yeah, we're just returning them here because we know we can, and then we're going to hop back on, and off they went. And that was the only time that I had that awareness that we are so close to some waterway that's actually still used.
One of seven wonders at British waterways, isn't it? Is it right they once tried to organise a high-profile sprint race down Straight Mile between, recalled, Daley Thompson and an ostrich? Is it right, that? I think my granddad told me that and all. He said they were going to fill it with Lucozade, but local fishermen kicked off and that.
You'd come off at the bus station and walk down the long steps. It was just a good way of getting out and seeing different scenery. If you don't like roads, if you don't like traffic, it's a good way of walking along, minding your own business. The paths are generally clean. It's a good place to get off because it's central to Burnley. So no matter where you come from, being Nelson or Parian, you end up at that point anyway. And then you just come down the hill. So we're about 12-year-old, and me and a couple of lads had found ourselves on the embankment of the canal, of the straight mile, where there's a big hill that leads down to the bus station, and we were toy wrestling, toy fighting, and we ended up rolling about 50 foot down this embankment bit. Anyway, we come to a halt, and I'd broke my collarbone. Anyway, a wee lad, he ran to the phone and he rang my mum. said, "Hey, I think he's broke his back." My mum were in shock. He's like, "Broke his back? Why, what's he done?" I said, "Can he stand?" He went, yeah, he can stand. "Well, I broke his bloody back then, has he?"
Growing up in the Burnley and Brighfield area, I was never allowed to visit the canal, even if I was with friends, and we did once when we weren't supposed to, obviously, and got into so much trouble. But there was this big fear that something had happened. You know, there were like ruffians around and stuff like that, and it was the early 90s and things were a bit scary because we were coming out of the 80s, which were a bit iffy for Asian people in sort of the Brighfield area. So yeah, my mum was always scared, and my dad really was always scared that if we weren't wandering anywhere, something really terrible would happen. But it never did. None of us fell in. We didn't find a shark fin or anything like that. Nobody got harmed in the canal.
I mean, I've talked to a few folk down here who canals are like, you know, bees knees or whatever. They feel the same way about canals as I do, like cardigans or beer, you know.
I have a fear of sharks and I imagine them in any body of water. But I love them, but I am so scared of them, and I often just imagine a fin in them and have to run away from the water quite quickly because it's frightening. But amazing, but frightening. It's the Jaws music.
Yes.
Oh yes, every time. Sometimes it's visions of Samuel L. Jackson being eaten from Deep Blue Sea, but it depends on how scared I'm feeling that day. But yes, so yeah, that's just my irrational brain doing irrational things.
Also, there were local nightclub. I mean, I'm sure it happened when it was Cat's Whiskers, and then it went to Ritzy. But you could see people in there like getting to know each other a bit better. Man, woman, man, woman, anyone really. You won't see them for half an hour. They come back down with, they come back into the nightclub with like dirty shoes and stuff, and knees were all roughed up. I'm like, "Where have you been?" "I've been on Canal, haven't I?" The Ritzy, when I used to go out, in the 90s. Yeah, you'll more or less live with your parents in them days. No one really had an house or all like that, so opportunities were scarce. So instead of wasting an opportunity, you said, "You fancy a wander?" And then you find yourself up next to a big body of water, moon's reflecting off the surface and everything, and you're just gazing into the distance, and before you know it, you're embraced in each other's arms, and then that way you'd walk back down after that and smile on your face, go and get another Budweiser or whatever. You could get burgers in that nightclub at one time. Well, you can now. Ketchup sometimes, but sometimes it weren't. Yeah, seeds all over the place. Sesame seeds, I mean, not bum. Not seedy.
That gaff, just as you come at tunnel, under the road. Is it a bingo palace now? I mean, for nearly 50 years or so, that were all manner of night spots, wasn't it? Locarno in Mecca, I think, back in 60s. Cat's Whiskers and Annabella's in 70s and 80s. Hey, there was some good Northern Soul days back when it was Rose Room, wasn't there? And I think all through those decades, that stretch of canal behind there became a bit of a private haven for inebriated courting couples, innit it? After a quick cuddle and a slice of cake or whatever. Lad I were at school with, he reckoned he'd been conceived up there. But I don't know if he were bragging or complaining. I don't know how he found out. Seems like an odd conversation to be having with your parents, doesn't it, that?
I mean, the canal, innit?
Yeah, that's perfect.